Hello, Paul is the best for UK here, and I thought I'd show you some of my tatty motherboards. Motherboards that have just been in storage. Some of them work, some of them don't. So this is my earliest one. It's a 486 based socket free motherboard. Now, this is very old. It's from 1991. Apparently it's a GA8 That doesn't mean a lot to me. It's got a UMC North bridge and a UMC South bridge. I don't know if that's a South bridge, I presume it is. An award BIOS from 1984 to 94, so it might be a bit later than 91 actually. You've got plenty of ISA slots and 3 that are also VLB. Socket free heat synced 486, that's a 486 AM 486 running at 50 MHz under that heatsink. On this board of these days, it was common to have all the legend of the jumper settings written on the board itself. Just in case you lost the manual, it would be helpful to see what you're doing. So there we go, it's got tantalum capacitors, and yes, you could add your own cache RAM in these cache RAM slots, up to 256k I believe. It supports earlier memory and later memory as well. Next up we have a Pentium 2 slot 1 motherboard. Now this, I forgot to mention that 486 motherboard is non-working at the moment, but this one actually works. You can see the big slot 1 processor dominating the board. This is a MS6123 version 1 motherboard, so that's MSI I believe. There's a Pentium 2 slot 1 processor with its big heatsink strapped onto the side and a fan. It's an Intel Pentium 2 with MMX running at 233 MHz. There is an AGP slot, 2 PCI slots, and nicely 2 ISA slots. This is running at AMI BIOS, American Trends I think that means, 1995. It's got Intel South Bridge. Winbond chip up here, that might be for the onboard LAN, I'm not sure. No, this hasn't got onboard LAN, sorry. So we've got PS2 keyboard and mouse port, 2 USB ports, 2 serial ports, 1 parallel port, 1 game port, microphone, earphone and line in port for the onboard sound. So next up we have a socket A AMD motherboard. This motherboard, as you can see, socket A. It's a V6DP and that's made by Jetway. We've got the CPU under this heatsink. I'm not going to take it off because it's a pain in the arse. We've got DDR1 RAM in this. We've got CR2032 battery. There's the, I believe that's the BIOS. This has got 1 AGP port, 3 PCI ports. We've also got some USB headers for front panels, things like that. We've got PS2 mouse and keyboard port, 2 USB ports on the back, a 100 LAN, a parallel port, a VGA port, forget the serial port there, and a game port, speaker out, line in and microphone in. The heatsink is, sorry, the chipset is heat synced. That last board was working fine when I last tried it, but this one however is a non-working board. This is a socket 478 Intel board. It's a Gigabyte GA8 SIML and it's revision 1.0. This one takes DDR RAM I believe, DDR1. We've got IDE floppy and there's the ATX power supply port. SIS 961 South Bridge. So this is one of them SIS boards, and it's got an internal buzzer speaker. We've got AGP port, 3 PCI ports, and an AMR port for things like Win modem, stuff like that. We've got AC97 for the case and front USB header, and a CR2032 BIOS battery backup battery. Here's a socket 478 socket, Pentium 4 most of the time. Now, as you can see, this one suffered what we call a capacitor plague. You might be able to see a better view at this angle. They've blown the tops. Look at that. Ouch. That's probably... We have PS2 mouse and keyboard port, LAN port, LAN port, USB ports, a parallel port for the printer, a serial COM1 port, VGA internal port, game port, speaker out, line in, and microphone in. Okay, next up we have a bit more of a modern board. This one works, as you can see. This one's an Intel GA8 board. It's a D33025. This is actually a system pulled from the RM all-in-one PC. That was DDR2 RAM. We've got 6 SATA ports on this one. Interestingly, we've still got a floppy drive port. Or is that an IDE? I think that might be an IDE actually. We've got PCI Express small ones, and 1 PCI port. This one requires additional power from the PSU for the CPU. This originally, when I got it, had a Core 2 Duo processor. On the back we got internal VGA, internal digital DVI, Firewire, which is unusual, USB ports, 6 of them, and a LAN port, line in, speaker out, microphone in. So it's got onboard sound. Last but not least, we have this board here. This is a much more modern board than the rest of them. This one's made by Biostar. It's an N68 S3B version 6.1. I've got installed Sempron 145 AM3 processor in the AM3 socket. This one takes DDR3 memory, ATX power connector here, and an IDE port, just the one. So it's still got IDE, some much more modern capacitors that are less prone to leakage, a power supply support for the CPU, that is an absolute requirement, PCI Express 16 port, and 1 single PCI standard port. There's no mini PCI ports on this one. Couple of USB headers for front panel, or whatever you want it for. We've got a keyboard and mouse port, PS2, nothing in this space here. Internal VGA port, 4 USB ports on the back, a LAN port, I think that's 100, not 1 gigabyte, and the usual microphone ear and line in. So that's all the boards together. 2 don't work and the rest do. You can see them all lined up here from earliest to latest. There goes a Pentium 2 and the socket A. And going the wrong way with the camera, I know this is a modernist. There's the AM3, the 775 board, and the 478. If you look at them at this time, there's something quite magical about the boards. You can see they look a bit like cities at this angle. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you got it this far, and goodbye.